In this video, I will be walking you through the download and installation of MySQL Server on a Windows machine. Now the platform I'm going to be using is Windows 10, and so the installation is going to be specific to Windows 10. The first thing we want to do is open up Google Chrome and download MySQL Server. So you go to mysql.org, go to downloads, the community downloads for MySQL, and click on MySQL Community Server. Now, the first thing I'm going to point out is you can actually download the zip archives for MySQL Server and install the server through the zip archives. I'm going to recommend that you install MySQL Server using the MySQL installer for Windows. Now what this MySQL installer for Windows does is that it allows you to install a suite of MySQL products for Windows platforms. And so we're going to install, in addition to the MySQL Server, we're also going to install a notification client that allows us to use the system tray to start and stop the server. And so go ahead and go to the download page for the MySQL installer. And so I'm going to download the MySQL installer for Windows. We don't want to create an Oracle web account, so no thanks, just start my download. And the installer downloads. So click on the installer and open it up. Run the installer. Now it's asking me for user access account control. Again, asking me for account access. Now this might not occur for you. This might be something that's specific to my machine right here. Now I have gotten this screen up. You might get a window saying that this installer needs to update. If the installer needs to update, just allow it to update itself. For some of you, this license agreement might just come up. So just say I accept the terms of the license agreement. Click on next. And so what we're going to do is we are going to say custom, because I want to select exactly what we need. I don't want to install just the client product, and so just the router, the workbench, the plugins and the connectors, or just the server, or everything, or developer defaults. I want certain things, and so I'm just going to have a custom installation. Click on next. Now in this case I want to install MySQL Server, and so under these available products on MySQL Server, find MySQL Server 5.7, and if you have a 64-bit operating system, click on x64, MySQL Server 5.7.91, and select it as a feature to be installed. If you have a 32-bit operating system, select x.86. Now another thing that I want to have installed is Workbench in this case, because my installation of Windows over here does not have a Workbench installed, so I'm going to install Workbench as well. You might not want to do this if you have Workbench installed. And the last thing I would recommend for everyone to install is this MySQL notifier. This notifier is something that runs in your system tray that basically allows you to see whether the MySQL server is running. And if it isn't running, you can start it up from the notifier. And if it is running, you can shut it down from the notifier. So we're going to install the MySQL notifier as well. And so those are the things I'm going to install. Now it's telling me that the MySQL server, I have a requirement for Microsoft Visual C++ redistributable is not installed. And so I'm gonna just click on execute right here to see whether it's gonna install this redistributable automatically, and it does. And so that requirement is taken care of. This might not happen for you. In my case, in my version of Windows, I did not have that requirement satisfied, and so it just made sure that that requirement was satisfied. Click on next, and so now what it's going to do, it's going to download these products. And so I'm going to execute, and as you can see, these products are downloading. Now it's going to go ahead and install them. Now this might take just a little bit of time depending on your machines. After the three are complete, click on next, and then we get an opportunity to configure the MySQL server. So do click on next once again. Now we're just going to run the classic version of the MySQL server, so no replication, no sandboxing. So we're just going to have standalone MySQL server, so we're just going to leave it at that. And we're going to click on the next button. Now, this is a development machine, and so, we're just going to say that that's what this is. We're going to leave it to standard TCP/IP, port number 3306. We can open up the firewall port for network access. If you want to, you can do this. You don't have to. I'm going to leave this up to your good judgment. Click on next. So I'm just going to open up the firewall port for network access. And so when you do this, you might want to shut down and start up the server depending on your need for it. Now, for a MySQL server, there is an account, a super user account known as the root account. This is where you have to specify the password for that account. You please notice that the minimum password length is 4. So you can specify a root password, and you'd have to repeat that. And keep in mind what this password is. This is not a password for your machine. This is a password for the super user account for the MySQL server, the root account. So specify a password. Repeat that password. Well, it says the password strength is weak. I've chosen a very simple password. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start and stop the server whenever I need it. Now, if you wanted to add other user accounts, you could add other user accounts. I would suggest you don't actually need to do this because this is a development machine. This is for your purpose only. So you click on next. And then you would leave this box checked, configure MySQL Server as a Windows service, and start the MySQL Server at system startup. You can leave this checked as well, so whenever your system starts up, MySQL Server is started up. Now again, this is a choice for you to make. You can start this up whenever your system starts up, or you can make a decision to not start it up whenever the system starts up, and have you start it you know, through the notifier. In this case, I'm just going to say start the MySQL server up at system startup, and so if it's started up, I can stop it at the end of that. I'm going to run this Windows service through the standard system account and not have a custom user. Click on next. MySQL is a document store. Just leave this as it is. Do not even touch it. And so what it's going to do is it's going to go through all of these steps. I'm going to say execute. Now, some of you, depending on your Windows configuration, might have a small problem over here, right? These things will not all happen because this takes actually some time to wrap up. If you have a fast enough machine, it's going to go through this quickly enough. On slower machines, you might fail some of these configuration steps. Just be a little bit patient, right? So it's gone through all of this. And so now we can click on finish. And the configuration is complete. You can see start MySQL Workbench after setup. I'm not going to do this, but you can after you can start MySQL Workbench if you wanted to. In fact, I'm just going to start MySQL Workbench so that you can see how I install or how I make it an account to connect to the local host or the server I just installed on Workbench. So I'm going to finish this up. Now, so Workbench is started up. And you'll notice that I have a notifier over here now in your taskbar. And so if you open it up, you can see MySQL server is running. And so you can stop it using the notifier. And so the system service status is changed. And so the MySQL service is stopped now. You can go to the notifier once again and start it up. And so I'm getting these notifications. And so the service is now running. And so while this has already made for me a connection, I'm just going to delete this and I'm just going to recreate this so that we know how to do this from scratch. Okay, so I want to add a new connection to the database server that is running on my local machine. And so I click on plus right here, and I'm going to give this a connection name. I'm going to give this connection name localhost on this machine. Right? I'm just going to call it localhost on this machine. You can really give this whatever name you want. The host name is 127.0.0.1. You want to just leave this as it is. Basically what this is it's called a loopback address. It's an IP address of your local machine. The port number is 3306. We're going to leave that as it is. And as I mentioned, you have a super user called root. And so the username is root. And so you can test the connection. So you just leave username as root as it is, and you can test the connection. And now this is where you have to input that password you specified. I had a weak password, so I'm just going to type that weak password in, click on OK. And I've successfully made the SQL connection. I click on OK. I say OK. And now I can connect to the localhost on this machine. And there we go. I am now connected to the database server that has been installed on this local Windows machine. I see a variety of different schemas over here. That's great. I can see the users and privileges. I can see the status of the server. And so I have now gained access to the MySQL server on this machine. You can create databases, you can use those databases, you can populate those databases with tables and run queries and things of that nature. This is how you set up a MySQL server on your local machine if you have a Windows box. Um, Thank you very much.